There was once a man who stood alone against kings, who walked unarmed into palaces, who stared down a nation that had forgotten the name of God. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't a priest, but heaven listened when he spoke. His name was Elijah. Before fire fell, before the mountain shook, there was silence. A silence that covered the land like a curse. Israel had bowed to Baal. King Ahab raised altars to false gods. Queen Jezebel hunted down the prophets of the Lord. They were slaughtered, silenced, erased, until one man stood up. Elijah appeared without warning. No guards, no army, only a sentence. There will be no rain, no dew, until I say otherwise. Then he vanished. While the land suffered, God kept Elijah hidden. In the wilderness, birds fed him. At a widow's home, oil never ran dry. He was sustained by miracles. While the nation broke under drought, the sky turned to bronze. The rivers cracked. Still no rain. 3 years passed. Then God said, "Go back." Elijah returned with a challenge. Not to kings, but to gods. One mountain, one altar, one test. If Baal is God, let him answer with fire. The nation gathered. Mount Carmel stood like a throne. The prophets of Baal began their show. They danced. They shouted. They bled. But the sky stayed silent. Then Elijah stepped forward. No frenzy, only faith. He rebuilt the broken altar of the Lord. 12 stones, one for each tribe. Then he did the impossible. He poured water over the sacrifice. Once, twice, 3 times, until it was soaked, until it overflowed. And then he prayed, "O Lord, let it be known you are God in Israel. Answer me so these people will know you alone are God." The mountain held its breath. And then heaven exploded. Fire fell like a sword. It consumed the sacrifice, the stones, the water, everything. The crowd collapsed. Faces in the dirt, tears in their eyes, and one cry filled the air. "The Lord, He is God." But Elijah didn't move, because he knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning, because the true battle had just begun. The fire had fallen. Heaven had answered. The crowd that once watched in silence now dropped to their knees, trembling. "The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!" they cried, voices rising like thunder over the mountain. But Elijah, he didn't flinch. He had more to do. He turned toward the crowd, his eyes sharp, unshaken. "Seize the prophets of Baal," he declared. "Let none escape." The people surged forward, obeying without hesitation. By the time the sun began to fall behind the hills, the false prophets were no more. Justice had come like a storm, yet something still lingered. The drought, 3 years of silence from the sky. The land was dry, the rivers thin, the sky unyielding. So Elijah climbed, one slow, determined step after another. Mount Carmel rose above the horizon like a shadow. He went alone, no chariot, no cheering crowd, only him and God. At the summit he knelt, his face to the ground, his heart lifted high. "Lord," he whispered, "bring the rain." He sent his servant to look to the sea. The servant returned, shaking his head. Nothing. Again, nothing. A third time, still nothing. 4 times, 5, 6, each time silence. Elijah didn't stop. He stayed there, praying with the kind of faith that doesn't move mountains. It waits on them to move. And then, on the 7th time, the servant pointed. There, a cloud rising from the sea, small, like the hand of a man. Elijah stood, fire in his voice. "Go! Tell Ahab, hitch your chariot and ride. Don't let the rain stop you." The sky darkened. Winds howled across the ridges. Clouds stacked like towers of smoke. Then came the first drop, then another, and another. Rain. After years of famine and drought, rain. It poured down with fury, soaking the dry earth, filling every crack, every silence. God had remembered his people. And Elijah, he didn't just walk. He ran. Scripture says the power of the Lord came upon him. He ran ahead of Ahab's chariot, miles through the mud, the wind, and the storm. He didn't slow, didn't stop. The prophet moved like lightning across the land, not in fear, but in victory. He reached Jezreel before the king, and when he arrived, soaked and breathless, Elijah knew. The drought was broken. The people had turned. God was still speaking. And this was just the beginning. But Elijah's battle wasn't over. Word reached Jezebel, and she wasn't impressed. She was enraged. She sent a message. "By this time tomorrow, Elijah will be dead." No trial, no debate, just a royal death sentence. And suddenly, the man who called fire from heaven ran. Elijah fled into the wilderness. He was afraid. He was tired. And for the first time, we see him break. He sat under a broom tree and whispered, "I've had enough, Lord. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors." This wasn't just exhaustion. It was despair. And in that moment, God didn't scold him. He sent an angel. A gentle voice woke Elijah. "Get up and eat." Beside him was fresh bread and water. He ate and lay down again. A second time the angel came. "Get up and eat, for the journey ahead is too much for you." This time Elijah rose, strengthened by that simple meal. He began walking, 40 days and 40 nights, through silence, through sand, through sorrow, all the way to the mountain of God. At last Elijah reached Mount Horeb. He found a cave, and he hid there. God's voice came. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah answered, "I've been zealous for you, but I'm the only one left, and now they want to kill me too." God said, "Go out and stand on the mountain, for the Lord is about to pass by." First came a powerful wind, ripping through the rocks, but God was not in the wind. Then an earthquake, shaking the mountain to its core, but God was not in the earthquake. Then came a fire, blazing, roaring, but God was not in the fire. And then a gentle whisper, a still small voice. Elijah covered his face, because God was in the whisper. The Lord spoke again. "Go back, anoint kings, and find Elisha. He will walk with you." Elijah stepped from the cave, no longer alone, no longer running. He had heard God's voice, and now he would obey. Elijah stood at the entrance of the cave. The fire had passed, the wind had gone, and in the silence, he heard it, a whisper. God wasn't done with him. There was still more to do, a new mission, a new beginning. He traveled until he found a man working the fields, Elisha, plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, a man of status, a life of stability. Elijah didn't say a word. He simply walked by and threw his cloak across Elisha's shoulders. And in that moment, everything changed. Elisha froze. Something stirred deep within him. He left his oxen and ran after the prophet. "Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye," he said. "Then I will come with you." Elijah replied, "Go back. What have I done to you?" But Elisha wasn't hesitating. He was preparing. He returned home, slaughtered his oxen, burned the plow, and cooked the meat for the people. It was his farewell to the life he once knew. He left no way back. From that day on, he followed Elijah. Years passed. Elisha served Elijah with quiet loyalty, learning, watching, walking beside him as the mantle of heaven slowly drew near. And then the final journey began. At Gilgal, Elijah turned to him and said, "Stay here. The Lord has sent me to Bethel." But Elisha answered, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So they went on. At Bethel, Elijah turned again. "Stay here. The Lord has sent me to Jericho." But again, Elisha replied, "I will not leave you." At Jericho, Elijah spoke a third time. "Stay here. The Lord has sent me to the Jordan." And for the third time, Elisha refused. "I will not leave you." He wasn't just being loyal. He knew something sacred was coming, and he refused to miss it. They walked on, just the two of them, while a company of prophets watched from a distance. Elijah folded his cloak, struck the water, and the Jordan River parted, opening a path only God could make. They crossed over together, and then Elijah stopped. The moment had come. The waters parted, and the dry ground appeared. Side by side, Elijah and Elisha crossed over. It was the path of miracles and of goodbyes. When they had crossed, Elijah turned to him. "Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you?" And Elisha didn't hesitate. "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit." Elijah looked at him, surprised by the boldness. "You've asked a difficult thing," he said. "But if you see me when I am taken from you, it will be yours." Suddenly the wind began to howl. A fire blazed in the sky. A chariot of fire drawn by horses of flame descended between them. In a whirlwind of glory, Elijah was lifted up into the heavens. Elisha watched in awe and agony. Elisha cried out, My father! The chariots and horsemen of Israel. But Elijah was gone. The wind faded, and all that remained was his cloak falling gently to the ground. Elisha walked forward, trembling. He reached down and picked up Elijah's cloak. The same cloak that had parted rivers, the same cloak that had called down fire. Now it rested on his shoulders. The mantle had fallen, and so had the weight of a prophet's calling. Elisha returned to the Jordan. He held Elijah's cloak in his hands, then struck the water just as his master had done. "Where now is the God of Elijah?" The river split. The miracle answered, and Elisha stepped forward, not as a servant, but as a prophet. From a distance, the company of prophets watched. They had seen the cloak fall. They had seen the river split. And they knew. The spirit of Elijah now rests on Elisha. A new prophet had risen. God's power had not departed. It had passed on. Elisha turned his eyes to the horizon. The journey wasn't over. There were battles ahead, miracles waiting, nations to confront. But he didn't walk alone. The God of Elijah was now with him.